Hello everyone and welcome back. We are here in London, preparation for the Fulham game on Saturday. Just behind me actually is the Dolphin pub, which is a Newcastle United fan pub. So for any of you that are coming down for the game, anyone that is living in London, you're a fan of the club, if you want to meet Newcastle fans, that there is the place for you. So make sure to come down if you get a chance to do so. I'm down here tonight because of the train strikes on the Friday morning, and also here watching Premier League games. And speaking of the Premier League, that is the topic of this video. I made a video yesterday talking about the brand new FFP law in the Premier League and how it would highly benefit Newcastle. The big disclaimer straight away, if you haven't watched that video, make sure to do so. This is almost a two-parter, I would say, in regards to information. Now, everything I've said in the video yesterday is still dated. The video is still factual. There's nothing in that video where it's contradicting with today. However, there are major additional information and a massive snag in the works that does cause a problem for Newcastle and is stopping us from essentially having unlimited spending. So FFP is still FFP in the Premier League. I'll give you a recap. Nothing is changing there. It's the actual punishment that is changing, and that benefits Newcastle. So we had this fear in the past where if we overspend, we get point deductions, we get transfer market bans. It will heavily damage us as a football club. Whereas this new rule now essentially makes the punishment more lenient. So you just get fined now. So a club like us, we've got multi-billionaire owners, we haven't got that issue anymore because that fine is minuscule. The fine won't cause us a problem, and the fine will be distributed across the teams in the Premier League that haven't broke the rules. The snag and the problem though is UEFA. So UEFA also has financial fair play regulations, and as some of you guys have correctly pointed out yesterday, the Premier League FFP law will also contradict with the UEFA FFP law. So Newcastle could spend all this money in the Premier League, but the problem being, it's fine in the Premier League, but it breaches UEFA regulations. So that's the issue straight away. And I'm here today to kind of talk you through how it would work, what Newcastle could do, and is this a major concern that Newcastle should be aware of? So what would happen with Newcastle United and UEFA if we were to start spending loads of money in the Premier League? What problems would we have in UEFA competitions? Now, it's been shown in the past actually that teams have been punished with bans. Galatasaray is an example in 2016, so they heavily breached UEFA regulations and actually got a 2-year ban from 2016 to 2018. Manchester City is a second example, so in 2020 again, with the current 115 charges, breach UEFA regulations. And it's not just a breach, by the way, it's a major breach. So it's not a case that you've slightly overspent your FFP. This is a massive, you've took the mick, you've spent a ridiculous amount, so now you get a 2-year ban. I'm not sure how this would work if Newcastle does not finish in a European position this season. So let's say the new law comes in the Premier League before the summer window. Newcastle goes out there to spend 300 million, spend 400 million. They take the mick and they'll spend a ridiculous amount of money. So if you were to get something like a 2-year ban, I don't know how it would work if you're not in European football. I don't know if it will start once you get into European football, or be a case that the ban would take place even though you're not in any UEFA competition. So it's quite fascinating to see how that works, because Newcastle could use that to their advantage. It could also be a case where if Newcastle was to overspend and take the mick and just to get all this money in, potentially take a season out of Europe, it's obviously going to damage us in the sense that you're not get your sponsorships in from the Champions League, you're not get your sponsorships from wherever European football you actually place in. But if it's a case where you take that out for a season, but Newcastle are able to spend a ridiculous amount of money and actually get those players in, when we get back into Europe, it will heavily benefit us as a club. There's also a few issues with UEFA and how things will work anyway, because the reason why this new Premier League system is coming into place is because of the fact that the Premier League is losing all their top stars. The Saudi League's buying everyone up. Even if you look at the January transfer window, it's the most inactive transfer window we've ever had in the Premier League. Nobody's selling and nobody's buying because they know we can't buy anyone because everyone's charging heavily inflated prices, and we can't sell because who we're going to sell players to, how are we going to work on the FFP? Everyone's scared of FFP, and it's destroyed the transfer market in the Premier League. It's the most inactive transfer market you'll ever see in January. Nobody spent and nobody bought, so what was the point of the window? It's an issue with the Premier League where it's actually spoiling the competition, and you're unable to get the best players in the world playing in the best league in the world. So the Premier League now has to change the laws where you're allowing teams to spend, you're allowing teams to improve the competition in the league. So that's one thing, and UEFA will contradict with the Premier League law. So you kind of got to look at how UEFA is going to change things, how are they going to balance each other. But for Newcastle, there are a few options. As I said, you can potentially take a UEFA ban for a year or two. buy loads of players and then go back into it. But again, I don't know how it would work if you're not in UEFA competitions in the first place, because of where we could potentially finish in the league. Furthermore, it's not just about heavily overspending as well in FFP. If Newcastle was just to slightly overspend, let's say bring 1 or 2 extra players in, they go a little bit above what they're supposed to spend, they might not get a ban at all. It might just be a fine of your UEFA. So you're getting fines of the Premier League and a fine of your UEFA. So as long as Newcastle doesn't go on an unlimited spending spree, you might get away with your UEFA. They might not actually ban you from competition, they might just give you a fine. So it depends what Newcastle do. They've got options out there. There are some positives of not even playing UEFA. So let's say Newcastle actually do the unthinkable, they get themselves banned from playing in the likes of the Champions League for a season or two. You can actually focus on domestic competitions. You've got a decent chance of winning something. And if Newcastle are able to actually have a ban when they're not UEFA competitions, you're potentially only missing 1 season. And if I ask you a question now, would you miss 1 season if it meant that Newcastle have a ridiculous spending spree, they're bringing loads of players, and all of a sudden they focus on domestic competitions for a season to potentially win something like the Carabao Cup or the FA Cup, or because of the fact they're not playing in the Champions League, they can focus on the league and actually shoot themselves into the top 4, which they can then play when they get back after the ban. It depends how you look about it. All different ways you can go about it, and you have to look into all the legal side of things and how the Premier League FFP laws would work with your UEFA's, because there's 2 separate FFP laws, which puts a massive snag in our potential unlimited spending spree. But to be honest, I didn't think Newcastle would ever spend a ridiculous amount anyway with the new laws. I think it'd just be a case where they'll bring an extra 1 or 2 players in, and they'll gradually take a little fine, but they're able to get the players in that you've seen this season with Black on the pitch, with Black on that bench. It's going to help solidify the team and just get us to where we need to be. Craig Hope has also spoken the topic, and he said that he doesn't think Newcastle's going to go on a ridiculous spending spree, but he thinks that someone's going to change, because you've got to keep likes of Bruno and Isak at the club. And that's the problem the Premier League has. Teams like Newcastle were in that position where there's a possibility you've got to sell one of your key players, and the Premier League's going to lose all their best attractive players. They're going to go to our leagues because of the FFP laws they've set out. The FFP laws just do not work at all. They don't work for the league we're in, and that's the situation we find ourselves in. That's why the majority of teams are voting for this new scheme where you don't get deductions, you don't get transfer bans, you just get fined, and it helps the league build more. Despite us being the best league in the world, we still don't have, I would say, some of the best players. I like to Belgium, obviously La Liga. There's so many good players in the Saudi League, and the Premier League's job is to basically stop the Saudi League. They want all the players to be playing in our league, and that's what they've got to change now. They're losing out on these best players because of the laws they've set out. The laws don't work, and that's why we're at this stage, and that's why I think it's going to go through. I think Newcastle will get something that will benefit us, it will benefit the top teams, it will also benefit the competition, because that fear is gone. The fear is gone. You can spend the windows again. A January transfer window, stuff will actually happen in the window itself. So even though it's a snag, you've got to look around the legal side of things, and I think it could potentially be a case where if Newcastle was to do something daft, they could potentially be banned for UEFA competitions, but the club could still get around it. I just need to know if Newcastle actually would have that UEFA ban when they're not UEFA competitions, or would take players the second they get back into UEFA competitions, because I think that's a massive indication of potentially if it's a gamble they should go for. But still, though, if they're just slightly overspend, they shouldn't get a major ban. The major ban's only if you take the mick and you just start spending a ridiculous amount of money. But that's the snag. The Premier League's still fine. Everything the Premier League wise is fine. It's just your UEFA competitions that has a problem. Your UEFA competitions state that you can't spend more than what the club generates. However, with the Premier League laws, that changes. So how would your UEFA's work? There's a massive contradiction between the 2 FFP laws. So that's interesting to see how things go. So we'll see what happens with UEFA, we'll see what happens on that side of things. That's a snag. Definitely not the ideal scenario, but everything with the Premier League wise is still fine. Nothing's changed yet. It's just the additional information and that UEFA has their own FFP, and that's going to be a problem for Newcastle, and it could potentially result in a ban from competitions if Newcastle was to just spend it all over. So yeah, let me know your thoughts down below, guys. I hope you don't walk away from this video feeling like something bad happened. I don't think anything bad is honestly happening. It's just a case where you've got a bit of an issue there, which we need to kind of think through. But listen, that's not my job. That's the job of man. That's the job of Miller. That's the job of Down. It's the job of everyone at the club. They look into all of these different aspects. they'll figure something out. I still think this new rule change is huge for Newcastle. It definitely still changes the way that we look at the market. It still changes the way that we think about it, and it still changes the way that our club is going to approach it. We're not going to have that scared feeling anymore, because worst case scenario, you're getting banned from the Champions League for 2 years. Well, let's be honest, we might not even be in any European football over the summer. So if it works concurrently, then potentially 1 year out of Europe, and would you take that? You probably would, wouldn't you? So we'll see how things transpire. But appreciate watching, guys. Take care. See you all at the Fulham game. Let me know your thoughts down below. Are you for this, or do you think Newcastle should play it safe now?